Okay, nagbabalik po ating programang Republika at ito po ang titulo natin programa, Presidential Proclamation 572. In the social chatter, no military personalities, retired or active?
None so far. Remember also before, retired flag officers, they have a group,
Yes.
they have not issued a statement. So we have not heard anything from them. Remember, this is a president who is fixing the military's hospital,
Yes.
medical facilities,
Yes.
cleaning up there. He's the one who improved the
100,000
salaries
pesos
and
for
wages.
the Marawi
Yes.
wounded, yes.
Raised all of
Yes,
that.
mhm.
And in general, is trying to see to the welfare of the Filipino soldiers.
Okay.
So-
Now this brings me to the question of everybody. They were expecting a declaration or some kind of a great proclamation or a great press conference or something. It became a tete-a-tete with
something- well,
with Secretary. I mean, everybody was thinking that the president seldom makes that kind of it's like a drum roll before
Yeah.
he says something. This time there was a drum roll, and then it became just a tete-a-tete. What was really the original intention? I mean, you're in
Actually, it
PCOO,
became
you would know.
more like a fireside chat.
Okay.
It would have been a personal, private conversation.
But was that the original? I don't think that was the original plan because there was some kind of a drum roll. I mean,
No, this
that's
was,
it, the public.
No,
Oh.
what was in the original plan was that the media would be present.
Okay.
And that they would be able to ask questions. At least that was in the works, from what I
Okay.
understand.
Okay.
But that was not approved. Instead, the questions
Who did
from
not approve it?
Ultimately, the organizers were not privy to who
Is
actually...
PCOO involved? No.
Yes, PCO was
Okay, and you
involved.
thumbed it down?
I don't think it was Sec Martin who thumbed
Okay,
it down.
okay.
It may have been Sec Harry Roque or the president himself.
Okay, who thumbed
So,
it down?
yeah. Instead, they gathered the questions from the
So question,
media.
why was there a drum roll? Because a press con is like, an everyday thing for the president. He would do it in Davao and they would all come in. And now there was some kind of a, you know what I'm
I
saying?
think,
no?
I think we were being overly
everybody was
dramatic.
waiting for it, for that announcement
there's
of the
some
press.
people
There was
who
some,
were nervous.
yes, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So what happened along the way?
I don't think it was really meant to be something bombastic. Remember, this is a mayor. And for him, it was necessary to always be in touch with his constituents.
Okay.
You can't do that anymore as president. So this was his way of, I want to be the one to tell them what's going
Okay,
on.
okay.
So that's really what it is. There's no intention to say, there's something dramatic in the works. In fact, he never said that. He said, I want to talk to the people. And so that's really what it was. He was
Okay.
talking to the people. He just needed the assistance of Attorney Panelo to guide him through what he needed to say. Because if left to his own devices, the president is very stream of consciousness. So this was a way of disciplining him.
You're saying he could not strictly stay on the...
Have you seen his
When you
speeches?
read it, I understand. Well, except if Mayor Sara is there, then maybe we're luckier. No? They'll still stick to the script. But
Yeah.
why not a press conference?
Uh,
I mean, he's winged the press conference many times,
yes, and in some instances, with great patience, what we believe is great patience, he wanted to be able to deliver his message and, just go
Not a
home.
press conference was not the way to do it.
No, not for him.
Why?
One, it might have strayed into topics he was not necessary to discuss at the time. For example, can you imagine how many questions there would be on the plot? What if you're not yet allowed to talk about it? What if the investigation is full ongoing?
Okay.
He found it necessary to tell the people that there's something here in the works. Please be vigilant. But to divulge the details of that might interfere with law enforcement. So, not exactly a good thing.
The people around the president was more worried where the discussion would end up. That's what you're saying.
No, not necessarily.
That's not okay. What?
More
what
like it was the
tell
president.
me what he's saying.
No, it's the president
Oh.
saying that this is the type of conversation he wants
That
to
he
have with the
wanted.
public. Yes,
Okay.
particularly at this time. He's,
Okay.
he's been saying things like, I'm tired and all of that. Some of the things that he has to deal with are dealing with the public, dealing with people who cannot really understand that there's some things that he has to absolutely do. There are
Okay.
political ramifications.
Okay.
There are things that he would like to prioritize first, and sometimes people don't understand it.
Okay, if you're looking back, how would you have rated the whole?
This is my president. I love
I
the
understand
guy.
that. I mean, that's why I'm giving you a chance to rate it. I mean, because there are other individuals, so also in the business, who would have probably suggested that he could have touched on the inflation and the increasing prices. And then,
He didn't feel that that was necessary.
this was the elephant in the room. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, well, he did, in a way.
Not exactly the main issue, no?
No, but he
not
did.
Proclamation
He
572.
talked
but
about NFA.
I understand that.
And that's
yeah,
a large part
Yes.
of inflation and
Yes.
food security all at the same
Yes,
time.
yes.
What he was saying, and it's something that we've been monitoring very closely, is that the NFA needs a major overhaul.
Yes.
Because the person he trusts so much, NFA Administrator Jason Aquino, was ready to throw in the towel.
Okay.
The legislative makeup, the structure of the
Okay.
NFA has an NFA council and an NFA, an executive branch, so to speak, with the council creating policy.
You heard the commentaries of the business sector, or at least some of them,
Some of them.
and they wanted more oomph, more
From the
more
president?
chutzpah. Yes, I mean in terms of handling the inflation, the pricing, the economy, etc., etc. And it ended up, federalism was even
Yeah,
also even
yeah.
touched on, and then of course Senator Trillanes. So it was like a whole gamut of so
I
many
think
things.
that people just wanted too much. There are certain things he wanted to say. Beyond that, he was, there's still, government information channels are still open.
Yes, yeah.
Federalism can still be discussed.
Precisely. That's why the business sector was saying we could have touched on the inflation and the economy, and that would have been the most pressing problem today, the
Food
price of
security,
rice,
yeah.
etc., etc. And then end the press con from there.
Yeah, but he actually did.
Uh-huh.
He talked about the NFA, although you're right.
As
it could
part
have
of so
been-
many other
yes.
subjects. That's what I'm saying. And
Well,
yet,
it was too long already.
that's precisely it.
Yeah.
He could, well, from the perspective of other people in the business, the most important question was the rice issue. I mean,
Yes.
that's something you should never touch as far as the Filipino palate is concerned. Fool around with the other pricing mechanisms, but never the rice. And then,
But the president, in fact, has taken care of that. From the start, he instructed Secretary Domingo
Yes.
to ensure that food security is paramount.
okay,
So that's why Jason Aquino was in the NFA. He trusts this person very much. And as a matter of fact, the cleanup of the NFA began as early as 2017.
yes.
A month after Jason Aquino took over, 2 months after he took over, Undersecretary Halman Valdez was fired.
by the way, Secretary Roque explained a lot of this in the next press conference, which people wanted the president to be the one to
Yeah.
say it because he's the father of the nation and he's concerned, he knows where it's going, and this should
And I
have been...
understand completely. But
yeah.
mostly what he wanted to talk about was the plot.
Okay.
So that was the primary thing. My guess is that everything else was thrown in. In fact, there's some point where Secretary Panelo was saying, okay, that's it. And the
yeah, and
president
they said,
said,
we'll still want to talk some more, yes.
Yeah, he's like my lolo trying to make
So
kwento.
therefore, the plot is really very serious.
Yes.
It
So
is,
this was
this is very serious.
yes, this was at the forefront of his mind.
Now, again, it brings back into my head, if this plot is so serious, and
Yes.
it's just being led by civilians without a military component,
Well, nobody ever said it wasn't, that it was viable. Nobody is
Okay,
talking about viability.
okay.
But the capacity to make trouble, to derail things like economic progress. and all
Okay.
that. And we have been making serious economic gains.
Yes, yes.
I mean, our growth is at 6%. While it's true our inflation is high, we're not in double-digit inflation. And inflation is a problem all over the world.
the notion of the common Tao is that when you talk about a plot, there has to be a military component.
Well,
That's the worrisome side of it when you overemphasize it.
Yes.
You-
I
you see?
understand. Yes, I
Now you understand what I'm saying. That's the reason why the plot takes a life of its own when you
Yes.
say it's a plot. However, if you say there are political movements to derail my
Yes.
presidency, then that's another issue.
Oh, take a look at 1986.
Okay?
The military component wasn't with Cory. They were acting on their own.
Exactly.
It just so happened that the two forces were able to combine at
Yes.
EDSA itself.
Yes, yes.
So the
So in this case, there is no
template-
military component.
As
That's
far
very
as we
clear.
can see, yes,
That's
there's
very
no
clear.
military
So this
component.
is just what
There's
you call
no
a political
unrest.
movement.
It seems to be that way, yes. And
Okay.
they're following a certain template historically.
Okay.
Circulating rumors about the president's
Okay.
health.
Okay.
Overemphasizing and exaggerating the economic problems. For example, one professor has characterized our inflation as hyperinflation.
Okay.
And 6.4% is in no way
Yes, 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 yes.
hyperinflation.
Yes, yes.
And yet the way some people are talking, it's as though, people are starving in the streets and dropping dead like flies.
Can we say that this plot has the blessings of the leftist, of
That's what
the
the president
armed
says.
CPP-NPA group.
Yes, that's what the president
terrorist.
says. Yes.
So that is where the military component probably, that's where we should deflect the
Well,
issue of plot.
You're right. Oh, well, it wouldn't be a military component,
be
but they
a-
would still be combatants.
Yes, exactly.
Yes,
So it just exacerbated the situation
Yes.
because there seemed to have been a mention of a military component. That became
that's
worrisome.
largely- that's
That
largely
became a
rumor,
worrisome
yes.
point because you know how it is. People
Yes.
say when there's a military component, then this must be serious. But when
Okay.
you say it's just the CPP, NPA with the political, then now, have you also heard that these yellow groups, you have identified them, obviously.
The president
without mentioning
identified
their
them.
names.
The president identified at least one in his speech.
Which is
Tindig.
Tindig.
Yes.
Okay, but is he below the hierarchy, up in the hierarchy of
Who is the senator?
the yellow group?
He said that they combined forces. So
Okay.
there's no talk about hierarchies.
Okay. These yellow individuals are worried because they will end up in jail? I'm
Only if they've done something really
I'm just
wrong.
throwing this out. I'm just throwing this out because the only reason why the yellow group could be moving is definitely
They're worried about going to jail.
their
would.
lifeline is shortening, yes.
They would. They should worry if they've been doing something wrong. And plotting to overthrow the president is sedition. Well, at least plotting for sedition. Diba?
And why
So,
would they do this?
Let me see. Protecting interests.
What else?
That's all that's being thrown
That's
around.
not
I
because they're
cannot
going to go to jail.
beyond. Right now, we don't see that. Well, unless they're worried that
Okay.
Senator Laila De Lima is going to be convicted, or
Okay.
that Senator Trillanes is going to go to jail. I think that right now, the Senator Trillanes is primarily worried about
Are
going
the yellow
to jail.
group worried that eventually, how would I call her? Okay, I'll just go. Vice President Robredo is going to be out very soon
I think
because-
people
because
are
the
more
yellow-
worried that she might become president. But
because the yellow group has been saying that there's a plot to remove her. You know, they have their own plot,
There
their
is
own conspiracy. So
Okay,
they're saying that
okay.
the Vice President may be
and
removed
that's
very
part
soon.
of their own. Okay, this part is opinion.
Okay, okay.
I think that's really part of their rumor mill, part of their template. You know, part of the fomenting unrest,
Mm-hmm.
part of creating the atmosphere of supposed dissent,
Okay.
legal or otherwise. But there is a case.
Okay.
Former Senator Bongbong Marcos has filed a protest case, and
Okay.
this is ongoing in the Supreme Court.
Okay.
If they say that there is a plot to remove her, it's certainly a legitimate one because it's going through the courts.
You have heard statements from certain columnists, certain individuals who may also be supportive of the president, by the way.
Yes, yes.
And they're saying, let sleeping dogs sleep and lie down and sleep.
This
and
dog
just
has
let-
not been sleeping.
but he's, he's just,
He's all bark.
yeah, let him continuously bark. But, but when you go toe to toe at a level which,
Okay,
yeah, it
when-
could have been somebody lower in the PCOO or not necessarily elevated to
president,
yeah, that's what I'm trying
addressing
to say.
the
Yes,
issue.
yes, yes.
I suppose that could have been done better, but the president wanted to address his constituents.
Okay.
This is, remember, like I said, he was a mayor. And
Yes.
as mayor, it was easy for him to get the pulse of his constituents.
That's his character in short.
Yes, he'd
Yeah,
walk around town,
Okay.
he'd take his motorbike, he'd pretend to be a taxi driver.
I know that
So-
part. Final question. They said this should have been better ignored rather
You
than
can't
resuscitated. Resuscitated.
Okay, let's put it this way. You can't ignore a plot to unseat the president, no
Okay.
matter what.
Okay.
So if the discovery of the problems with his amnesty was as a result of this, the letting sleeping dogs lie is almost impossible now to do.
Okay, that's the full hour. We'd like to thank, of course, our social media officer from the Presidential Commission Operations Office, Attorney Trixie Cruz Angeles. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
At wala na po tayong panahon. Ito po si Eric Espina, palagi nagsasabi, magmasid, makialam, higit sa lahat ay manindigan. Dahil wala pong magmamahal sa Pilipino kung hindi ang Pilipino. Daghang salamat, mayong gabi kaninyong tanan.